Hey, today I'm talking about 3 movies from the 90s that are all set in the future. And the names of those 3 movies are Cowboy Bebop, Knocking on Heaven's Door, Robot Wars, and Johnny Mnemonic. What the stuff is Cowboy Bebop, Knocking on Heaven's Door. Technically this came out in 2001, but the anime is from the 90s, so I'm still gonna count it. I decided to do a rewatch of the entire anime in preparation for the new Netflix show. So I'm actually gonna be talking about all 3 things. First up, I crazy loved the anime, especially back in 2001 when it came to America. I was all about it. I was madly in love with Faye. I was so excited when I realized she was born in the 90s. I was like, oh my god, I was born in the 90s. This is so cool. And then I also loved Ed and Ein, and just, it was so great. I've watched the show so many times. The last time being a few years ago when I actually cosplayed as Spike. Look at that attractive guy. Yeah. But it has been a few years since then. And yeah, the TV show still holds up great. Obviously not all episodes are as good as others, but it's just really good. If you haven't seen the anime, I without a doubt recommend it. Now, the movie came out a few years after the anime did. It takes place between episodes 22 and 23 of the anime. I watched it in chronological order, and that kind of didn't feel like the right thing to do. It kind of felt more like it's meant to just be like, here's one last hurrah with all your favorite friends. My big complaint about the movie is it didn't have the best pacing. That's something I loved about the show, is that it just moves so quickly, and like if my interest in the show ever started to fade, right as it was starting to come down, suddenly the next plot point would happen and everything would kick into high gear, and I'm like, yes, perfect, great. The 24-minute time slot, you guys nail it. But now they have 2 hours and they just kind of do a whole lot of stuff and it just doesn't work and flow as well. Apparently originally this was only going to be a 90-minute film, and I think that would have been a lot better. 2 hours, just too much time. The movie was good, it was alright. I wasn't blown away by it, but wasn't bad by any means. Now, the Netflix show is like someone watched the anime and then completely missed the entire point of everything and then tried to recreate it poorly. I went into this Netflix show with an open mind. I wanted to like it. I really hoped to like it. But man, I was a weird mixture of I really hate this too. Oh, it's not bad. That's actually okay. But like, I couldn't even finish the show just because I was so frustrated with like how much they just butchered everything. As an example, I'll talk about Faye. Faye herself, I'm actually fine with her portrayal. The costume change was a good idea. Her swearing a lot makes a lot of sense. The first episode where like she's in a ton of it, the cold open of the show starts off with her explaining her really interesting backstory. And it's like, show, don't tell, not the reverse. Faye is this mysterious woman who constantly lies, especially about herself, and the only reason we found out who she was in the backstory is because she was feeling lonely and she was talking to a dog. We get to see it, and it's really emotional and really interesting, and it's easily, without a doubt, one of my favorite episodes of the show. But they just condensed all of that into about 2 minutes of Faye just talking. So, if you have any interest in Cowboy Bebop, without a doubt, do not watch the Netflix adaptation. It is trash. I do, however, crazy recommend the anime. It is great, it is amazing. I'm even very okay with you watching the English dub because it is considered one of, if not the best dubs out of any anime ever, and that's awesome. So, yeah. Our next dub is Robot Wars. This is a 1993 film that is just like a big mech fighting movie, but don't get your hopes up too far because there's not a lot of big robots fighting. There's just one scene of it and it's alright. Now, I was kind of really surprised by this movie because it wasn't complete trash. I expected, looking at this poster, that it was going to be kind of garbage, but it was actually pretty good. It felt a lot like old school Godzilla movies. Kind of cheesy and over the top, but like the special effects looked really cool, and it had a silly story with interesting lore, and it wasn't bad. Also, all of the characters had very distinct personalities. None of them went on any arcs or anything, or grew or changed or whatever, but like there was no mixing up any of the characters. They all visually looked different and they all had distinctive personalities. This movie was solid, it was decent. I will say some of the characters are a bit bit misogynistic, and I'm not sure if they're supposed to be funny or not. If they are supposed to be funny, it's kind of funny. If they're not, ugh. I also think this movie's like prime pickings for a remake because they have like a very, very solid start to a story. Like it's an interesting universe that you can add so much more flair to the lore, and like it's got a pretty decent plot, though technically it might kind of be racist, but it's not overtly racist, so that's easy to tweak. And yeah, it's just like, it's not bad. It's definitely not bad. If you're a fan of old school Godzilla stuff, I definitely recommend it. If you're not, I don't necessarily recommend it. You might enjoy it, but you proceed at your own risk. But yeah, it was pretty good. And lastly is Johnny Mnemonic. This is a Keanu Reeves film from 1993, and the basic premise is, in the year 2021, a deadly virus has taken the world hostage. I don't joke. That is the basic premise of this movie. There's also just like human computers, basically. They can like copy stuff into their brain and then are like human smugglers. So they take it across borders and then download it into something else, but they can also like see into the information sometimes. It's a really ridiculous plot. Ignoring the pandemic stuff that weirdly happened to be true, it's kind of a really ridiculous plot. I will give this movie credit in that it has its very own style, and it pushes that style hard and it nails it. It's not really a great style, but it's definitely its own unique thing. I didn't super care for this movie. The acting was definitely rough and just hard to look past. I think, again, this is a movie where it's like, you should probably watch it with a group of people while under the influence of something to get more of the enjoyment. Just because it is really ridiculous and crazy, and it's just like, if you can laugh at this movie, then it's a bit more fun. But just trying to like take this movie at face value sober is just like, it's a rough experience, to say the least. Ugh. If that's something that you want, then go for it, especially again if you're drunk. But if that's not your vibe, please don't watch this movie. It's gonna hurt your soul a little bit. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got Cowboy Bebop knocking on heaven's door, sitting at number 159 in the liked category. And then not too terribly far behind is Robot Wars, also sitting in the liked category at number 191. And then bringing up the rear, rightfully so, is Johnny Mnemonic, sitting at number 224 in the meh category. And that is out of a total of 257 old movies so far this year. And that brings the grand total out of all the movies I've seen so far this year up to 330.